poppin', y'all? It's your boy, Mr.BandClap, and we in the building with another short video. So today I want to talk a little bit about shadow work. In this time right now, a lot of us are doing a lot of reflecting, reflecting on different things in our life that we need to let go, and the origin of why we even started to develop certain behaviors and why we started to develop certain outlooks and certain mindsets in the first place. And this is the reason why shadow work is so important. I talk about it a lot. I even have a class talking about shadow work. And if you want to join that class, www.bandclaptv.com. So one thing that I talk about a lot is when you're on this spiritual journey, it is a self journey, which means that there's a lot of times where you're going to be alone. There's a lot of times where you're going to feel like you have nobody to talk to. There's going to be a lot of times where you feel like nobody around you understands. Now, if you see that, there's an issue with being alone with you, this may be something that goes farther back, and this is something that you're going to have to start doing in shadow work so you can figure out why is it that you feel depressed and you feel lonely when you're alone. Now, you have certain signs like Virgo, and you have certain placements to where, being a hermit isn't really that big of a deal. Some of us, we don't have a negative connotation. We don't have a negative connotation about being alone. Some of us, we would rather prefer to be alone in a lot of cases. But I noticed in my particular journey, I had an issue with being alone, and I had to figure out why is it that I felt like that. Because with me being a South Node in Cancer, this talks about someone who in past lives always had dependency issues, which means that in my life, I decided to come back and learn about being that type of a man that can stand on his own too, and don't need a whole lot of people around him, so he can know that he's on the right path, so he can know that that he's valuable, so he can know that he's secure within himself. So in my shadow work journey, I had to ask myself the same question that I'm asking you all today, which is, can you recall the first time that you truly felt alone? And what did you do to get past that situation? Or were you ever able to get past that situation? So when I first started, and I started going back, deep into my childhood, it brought me back to, when I would say about 7 years old, all the way up till, till my little brother, which is 10 years younger than me, till he started, getting up before me and stuff like that. So, there was this time when I was a child, and I've always had a very good relationship with my parents. I've always had a love for my dad and all of that stuff. So a lot of times when I was little, my dad would be up, and this would be during the summertime when I didn't have to go to school, and my mom didn't have to go to school. So my dad would be the only one getting up early in the morning, going to work. And a lot of times I would get up early in the morning, or sometimes he would come and get me up early in the morning when he would get up and go to work. And I remember, I would feel a little sad because, he's about to leave and all of that stuff. But, my dad would always tell me, since I'm gone, now you're the man of the house. And, even though your mom is going to be here and you need to obey her and stuff like that, since you're the only, you're the next one up as far as age and stuff like that, you're the man of the house when I'm not here. So, I felt, I didn't really feel alone, because I knew that, my dad was only going to be gone for a few hours, to go to work. And then I still had my mom there, and I still had my little brother there, during that time after he was born. So I had to go back even further, because I'm like, okay, I didn't really feel alone. Yeah, I felt a little sad, but I didn't really feel alone. So I had to go back even further into my childhood. So now I'm back to when I was about 4 years old. I would say around 3 or 4 years old. You know, this was around the time to where, you know, I couldn't go to daycare. My mom didn't like the way the daycares was treating me as a child and stuff like that. She had a lot of issues with that. So what my dad would do, he would get up early in the morning, pack my stuff up, and I would go to my grandmother's house, and I would stay there until my dad got off of work. And this would be what I would do all the way up until I started school. So the first few times that I used to go to my grandmother's house, you know, I would bring my toys with me. You know, I had these little handheld games. I would take those with me. But since I had a lot of uncles and a lot of my cousins and stuff like that were little babies, and a lot of times they would have to go to my grandmother's house too. A lot of times my toys would get lost. Sometimes my toys would get broken and stuff like that. And, you know, being a kid and crying and being mad and all of that stuff for so long, you know, my mom started telling me, no, don't bring none of your toys over there. Don't bring none of your games, none like that over there. And, you know, this was what I would do to kind of supplement not feeling alone. Because I'm like, yo, I got my toys with me. I got my game with me. You know, I'm going to be straight. You know, even though I'm going to be alone for a little while, I'm going to be straight. But the time that I truly felt alone, and this was, I would say, you know, around 3 or 4 years old, you know, my dad dropping me off to my grandmother's house. It's like 5 or 6 in the morning. The house is extremely quiet because everybody's asleep. My grandmother, my auntie, my uncles that stayed there, everybody was asleep, you know, and I'm expected to be in this silent, eerie looking, you know, house, dark house, and I'm expected to just sit down on the couch and be extremely quiet until everybody wakes up and all of that. And I remember those times where when my dad would drop me off over my grandmother's house, I would go in the bathroom and cry, you know, because I was so sad. That was my first time as a child ever feeling truly alone, you know, nobody to talk to, nothing to play with, nothing to look at or nothing. I was just in a silent house, like a silent, dark house, waiting on everybody to wake up. I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't really make any type of noise or anything like that because I don't want my auntie coming out the room, you know, telling me, yo, you got to come in here and you know, in my room until everybody wake up. And then that's when I get super depressed and super sad because in my auntie room, it's extremely dark, no sunlight, no nothing. And that felt like, as a child, being a child, that felt like solitary confinement, you know, as a kid. Because this was around the time where it was like a year or so before my grandfather passed. And I don't remember too much about my grandfather on my dad's side, but, you know, my dad used to tell me how, you know, he would be the only one that would play with me, you know, when I would come over there. So, you know, I lost a really integral part of my life at that time with my granddad passing, and now, you know, I'm feeling truly alone, and, you know, nobody's around, and I got to kind of be still until about 11 or maybe 12 when everybody wakes up. So the main thing that got me through that time was just me looking at the grandfather clock, you know, that was in the living room. And every time that I would hear that clock go ding dong, you know, I would feel like, okay, you know, it's almost time. It's almost that time. It's almost that time, you know. And as the months as the months went by, my oldest uncle, you know, he would come by in the morning and turn on the TV, you know. So now I'm watching Nick Jr., you know, I'm watching my favorite cartoons, and now, you know, I got something to keep me occupied. You know, now I don't feel alone anymore. I don't feel alone anymore, you know. And then as the months went by, you know, it got to the point where that time where I would feel truly alone would start to dwindle, because now a lot of my younger cousins is starting to come over grandmother's house, you know, and they would come over, I would say a few hours after I would get there, you know. And then once they're there, now I got people to talk to, now I got people to play with, you know. And me doing that shadow work and going back to that time, it really taught me a lot about a lot of the things that we go through in this life, in this time, you know, when we grow up and we're adults and stuff like that, and we have to go through this shadow work journey, and you start to feel that aloneness again. You start to feel that aloneness again, you know, because you know, you can't really talk to, you know, when you're doing the shadow work journey, a lot of things are coming up that you don't want to talk to nobody about. A lot of things are coming up that you don't want to express, and you don't want to bring that baggage. Just like when I used to try to bring my toys and I used to try to bring my games and all of that. You don't want to, you know, you wouldn't want to do that. You know, you don't want to bring that baggage and stuff like that. You have to come alone, like Erykah Badu said. You got to pack light, you know. So when you're on this shadow work journey and you're feeling alone, you're feeling like you don't got nobody to talk to, you feel like there's nobody there, you know, who is your oldest uncle that would come into grandmother's house and lighten it up, you know, cut the TV on, you know, cut your favorite show on, you know. So now you got something else to occupy your mind until my dad comes back and get me, so I can go home, you know. So when you're doing this shadow work journey, that uncle for me was my ancestors, my higher self, the old ones who already been through what you've been through, and they literally, instead of them reincarnating into new bodies and coming back, they decided to stay on the spirit realm as your ancestors, and they're literally here waiting for you to take this journey so that they assist you. So they can assist you, and they can turn on the programming that you need to help you to get through this shadow work journey. Just like how my uncle turned on that TV, your ancestors are ready to program you with the tools that you need so that you can get through this shadow work journey, aka, you know, to get through this time a lot more quicker, because now your mind is occupied with all of these good thoughts, all of these nostalgic thoughts that can really help you to get through this journey. So now, remember when I said, you know, there came a time to where my baby cousins started to come over, you know, and when my baby cousins would come over, now, you know, now I got the TV on, you know, watching Nick Jr., you know, watching these shows that I used to like watching as a kid, and then I got my baby cousins to play with, you know. So what does the baby cousins symbolize in your shadow work journey? Your inner child, you know, you getting to know your inner child. So now, you know, now you don't feel alone. Now you truly don't feel alone. Now you truly don't feel alone, because now you got your inner child. You know, you're getting to know your inner child. You're experiencing this new programming. You're creating this new reality so that you and your inner child can have a place in your mind, you know, in your subconscious mind, that you can always go to, no matter what type of depression or what type of ill feelings that you may be feeling, and you can always go back to that place that you created where your inner child is at. And remember when I talked about before I even had all of those things, and how when I used to look at that grandfather clock and the ding dong was the only thing that I really had to get me through, you know, that can be very painful. You know, that can be very, you know, time always seems really slow when you're constantly looking at it. But time starts to fly. Time starts to fly when you got all of these other things put in place to help to pass that time. And before you know it, you know, before I knew it, my dad was knocking on the door. You know, a lot of times he had a bunch of Jack Perkins chicken boxes and stuff like that, and he would come through and feed everybody, you know, and it was always a good time. So I wanted to share that, and I wanted to motivate somebody else out there that's going through their shadow work journey, and you may feel alone. You may feel like you know, nobody understands you. You may feel like you're in a mental place where you know, you're just isolated. You know, and I wanted to share some of the tools that I used in my shadow work journey to, you know, maybe help somebody else out there. So, like I always say, if you want to join my shadow work class, if you want to get a reading from me, go to my website, www.bandclaptv.com. As you know, the On Point Orisha Tarot forecast is coming up next. And BandClap TV, we out. No matter what, remember, you got to stay shining. All right, see y'all on the next one.